Hi, welcome back, beautiful beloved souls. This is mainly a commentary channel and I look at everything and anything to do with anything through a lens, hence the name of the channel. My name is Gemstone. I'm a psychic medium and I am an author. Now, I am just trying to make a few dollars. So if you would like to learn how to channel or how to remote view, stick to the end where I will give you that information. I'm not saying that I am an expert at either. I've just been able to do this for many years, and at best, remote viewing is only 65% accurate. Okay, let's get into the commentary. Beyond the brain, why my NDE, near-death experience, void, experience challenges materialist science. Picture a city at night. Millions of lights flickering. Electrical signals racing through hidden streets. Tiny storms of information firing in every direction. That's how modern neuroscience often describes consciousness. A biological thunderstorm. A neural sympathy. A neural sympathy. Not sympathy, symphony. A wet computer running on electricity. And I hope I pronounced this famous scientist's name correctly. Physicists like Michio Kaku, I'll spell his name for you and I'll also put it in description. His first name is M-I-C-H-I-O. Michio, and his last name is Kaku, K-A-K-U, have argued that what we call the self may ultimately be explainable through a neural mapping, electrical impulses, and the staggering complexity of the human connectome. But there's a problem. What happens when electricity stops and awareness remains? Because during my own near-death experience, after an overdose that should have killed me, I encountered something that completely shattered the materialist model of consciousness. There was no tunnel, no angels, no heavenly choir drifting through cosmic clouds. There was blackness, absolute blackness, but I was aware inside of it, not dreaming, not hallucinating, not unconscious, aware. And that single fact has haunted me ever since. And I've also covered my NDE before on my channel. If you've never watched it, I would suggest that you watched it. Okay, because if consciousness is merely the byproduct of electrical impulses in the brain, then who or what was observing the void when the biological machinery was shutting down? In this video, we bridge the gap between neuroscience, physics, consciousness studies, and the terrifying stillness of the NDE void. Not to attack science, but to ask whether science may be looking at consciousness through the wrong end of the telescope entirely, because maybe the brain isn't the creator of awareness. Maybe it's the filter. And maybe what we truly are cannot die. And I'm going to tell you a poem I learnt in grade 8 at the end of this. All right. The physics of the flesh. Modern neuroscience has become increasingly ambitious. Researchers are attempting to map the entire human connectome, the complete wiring diagram of the brain. The theory is simple. If we can map every neuron, every electrical pathway, every chemical exchange, then eventually consciousness itself can be explained. In this model, you are essentially a biological machine of staggering complexity. Thoughts, electrical patterns, memories, encoded neural architecture, love, chemistry, intuition, subconscious data processing, the soul, an illusion generated by the cortex. Materialism argues that consciousness emerges from matter the same way music emerges from a piano. No piano, no music. No brain, no awareness. And to be fair, neuroscience has uncovered extraordinary things. Brain injuries can alter personality. Electrical stimulation can trigger memories. Certain drugs can distort perception. Damage one area of the brain and language disappears. Damage another and facial recognition collapses like corrupted software. When my husband Rob was dying and so septic, he was a completely different person. Pathogens in the body had caused him to be someone I didn't recognize. So clearly, the brain matters. But here's where the mystery begins. Correlation is not causation. A damaged radio distorts music, but does that mean the radio created the broadcast? And this is where near-death experiences become deeply uncomfortable for strict materialism, because thousands of people across cultures report awareness during periods where brain activity was severely compromised. Not vague dreaming, not fragmented confusion, but hyper-real experiences, clearer than waking life. That's the contradiction. Why would a dying brain, starved of oxygen under massive neurological stress, produce experiences that people consistently describe as more coherent than ordinary reality? That makes no sense under standard neurological assumptions. A failing computer doesn't suddenly become more intelligent as it powers down. Yet, many NDE experiences describe expanded awareness, timelessness, total clarity, profound perception. It's almost as if consciousness becomes less filtered when biology weakens. And that possibility changes everything. My experience of the void. When I overdosed, it should have been fatal. I expected oblivion. Instead, I encountered something impossible to explain. Blackness. Not darkness like sitting in a room with the lights off. This was different. It was a vast, silent absence. No body, no time, no sound, no fear. Yet somehow I was still there. Awareness existed without the normal machinery of human experience. And that's the part I can never shake. Because according to materialist neuroscience, my conscious experience should have been collapsing into chaos. The brain, under overdose conditions, should produce confusion, fragmentation, disorientation. Instead, I experienced stillness, pure stillness. No dreams, no narrative, no imagery, just existence itself, almost like consciousness stripped naked from biology. And strangely, the void did not feel empty. It felt alive in a way that is difficult to describe. Not alive as a being, not alive as a place, but alive with presence, a silent field of awareness. Many people who experience the NDE void describe something similar. Not heaven, not hell, but a state beyond sensory reality itself. And here's the disturbing implication. If consciousness can exist independently from normal sensory input, then consciousness may not depend on sensory organs in the way we assume. The brain may shape experience, but perhaps it does not generate awareness itself. The silence of the dying brain. Here's something rarely discussed. The brain is noisy, constantly noisy. Billions of neurons firing every second. Electrical storms, chemical exchanges, endless sensory processing. Your normal waking state is neurological chaos organized into unusable perception. But during many NDEs, people report the opposite. Profound silence, clarity beyond ordinary thought. Why? If consciousness is merely the product of brain activity, then reducing brain function should reduce awareness, not intensify it. Yet, some cardiac arrest patients later describe events occurring around them while clinically unconscious. Researchers studying near-death experiences have documented cases where experiencers later recall accurate details from periods of unconsciousness that remain difficult to explain conventionally. Now, does that automatically prove the soul survives death? No. Science must remain careful, but it absolutely creates cracks in the purely materialistic model because there is no accepted neurological explanation for why a severely compromised brain would produce heightened lucidity, panoramic memory, timeless awareness, profound emotional coherence, or non-local perception. The materialist explanation usually falls back on the brain was hallucinating. But hallucinations are normally fragmented, unstable, or irrational. NDEs are often remembered as the single most meaningful and coherent experiences of a person's life. That's not typically neurological collapse. That's the paradox. The electric dead end. There's another problem science still cannot solve. The hard problem of consciousness. Why does electrical activity produce subjective experience at all? A neuron firing can be measured. Voltage can be measured. Chemistry can be measured. But science still cannot explain why any of that produces the feeling of being. Why does matter become experience? Why should electrical signals generate the color red, the feeling of grief, the taste of coffee, or the terrifying serenity of the void? This gap remains enormous. You can map every neural event associated with fear, but mapping fear is not the same as explaining why fear feels like something internally. Subjective awareness remains the ghost inside the machine. And this is why many researchers are beginning to explore radical alternatives. Some physicists and consciousness theorists are asking whether consciousness is fundamental rather than produced, not created by the universe, but woven into reality itself, like gravity, like space-time, like quantum fields. If that's true, then the brain may function more like a receiver than a creator, an antenna tuning consciousness into physical experience. Damage the antenna, the signal becomes distorted, but the signal itself may continue existing independently. Suddenly, the NDE becomes easier to understand because death would not necessarily destroy consciousness. It would merely interrupt the biological interface. Quantum biology and the new frontier. Now, this is where things get controversial. Some researchers in quantum biology are exploring whether consciousness involves processes deeper than ordinary neural firing. Quantum coherence, microtubules, non-local informational structures. Much of this remains speculative, and it's so important not to exaggerate the science. But the fact these discussions are happening at all reveals something fascinating. Even physics is beginning to struggle with strict materialism. Reality itself appears stranger the deeper we look. Particles behave probabilistically. Observation affects outcomes. Space and time become unstable at quantum scales. The universe increasingly resembles something fluid and participatory rather than solid and mechanical. And perhaps consciousness is woven into that deeper structure, not trapped inside skulls, but temporarily focused through them, like sunlight passing through stained glass. The brain shapes the pattern, but the light exists independently. The intuitive leap. Here's what fascinates me most. Across human history, across cultures, across religions, human beings have carried a deep intuition that consciousness survives death, not because of scientific proof, but because something inside us resists the idea that awareness is merely accidental chemistry. Now, skeptics will say that intuition is just evolutionary psychology. Maybe. But my experience in the void changed how I see this completely, because what I encountered did not feel like fantasy. It felt more real than ordinary waking life. And countless experiences say the same thing. More real, more fundamental, more true. That doesn't mean every interpretation is correct. People interpret NDEs through cultural lenses, religious, spiritual, psychological. But underneath those interpretations lies a common thread. Awareness continues. And perhaps intuition itself is not irrational. Perhaps it is kind of an internal compass pointing towards something science has not yet fully understood. The future of consciousness research. I don't believe science and spirituality are enemies. I think they are two explorers standing at opposite ends of the same dark ocean. Science measures the waves. Spirituality dives into them. Eventually, they may meet in the middle, because the old mechanical model of reality is beginning to crack. Consciousness remains unexplained. The hard problem remains unsolved. Near-death experiences remain deeply mysterious. And perhaps the greatest mistake modern civilization ever made was assuming that only measurable things are real. Love cannot be weighed. Meaning cannot be photographed. Awareness itself cannot be placed under a microscope. Yes, these are the deepest aspects of human existence. Maybe consciousness is not produced by matter. Maybe matter itself emerges with consciousness. And maybe the silent void encountered during near-death experiences is not evidence of annihilation, but evidence that awareness exists before thought, before identity, before the body itself. A kind of primordial field, silent, infinite, watching. So, I leave you with this question. If consciousness is only electrical activity in the brain, who was aware in the blackness when my biology should have been shutting down? Was it a dying hallucination? A final neurological flicker? Or did I briefly encounter the part of ourselves that exists beyond the biocomputer reality, the part untouched by synapses, untouched by flesh, untouched even by death itself? Maybe the brain is not the source of consciousness. Maybe it is the veil. And every near-death experience is a small tear in the fabric. Okay, I just want to talk now a different thoughts. Science itself, even though there's this belief that once the battery dies, and the electrical impulses end, that's it. Science also teaches us that we're energy, and energy is never lost. Okay, I want to now share, and this is quite humorous, a poem I learnt in grade 8. It comes from a book called Improving on the Blank Page, and it's titled Reincarnation. Okay, I died. Then the worms ate me. Then the birds ate the worms. Then the bird shat on the fence. There's me sitting on the fence. All right, like I said, please, if you're going to drop a comment, I ask that you do so with respect. If only the world was more tolerant, less judgmental, more caring and kind, wouldn't it be a better place? Now, I said that I'm just trying to make a few dollars, so I am offering PDFs on how to remote view or how to channel. And there's my PayPal address for putting in the money, and there's my email address. And I also welcome viewers' emails. You can, if you want to drop me a line, do so, and I will get back to you within a couple of days. So you don't have to buy anything from me and just want to write to me. If you want to write to me suggesting what else I look at, that would be great too. All right, as you are writing that down, can I ask that you please be kind to each other, smile at a stranger. It costs nothing to be nice, and you might just save someone's life. Most of all, take care of yourselves because you matter. You are precious. You are special. You're here for a reason. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, not Friday. I've got a big day Friday. So thanks again for watching, beautiful, beloved souls. Love, light, and blessings. Goodbye.